35 drivers. 6 weeks. If you want to make it to the Supercup, you have to survive this gauntlet. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to round number 1 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Contender Series for the upcoming 2022 season of the Heuer Esports Supercup. My name is Connery Maddock, and I'm joined by the ever wonderful Joshua Lee for not only this broadcast, but for the entire season as well. Joshua, 35 drivers are wondering what it takes to get themselves qualified up into that Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, but we'll only know at the end of 6 rounds of racing.
Yeah, and this is going to be a very short sprint, really, to the end of the Contender Series. You talk about 6 rounds. You cannot make a mistake in these 6 rounds. You got to be consistent. You got to minimize those mistakes down to maybe 1 small on-track mistake per race. You can't make large mistakes, or else you're going to be eaten alive by the point standings.
Well, let's take a look at where we're racing here today for round number 1. None other than the Hockenheimring here in Germany. An absolutely fantastic racetrack, plays host to so many of the world's most famous racing series, and it's only fitting that it starts us off here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Fantastic layout, of course, a lot of slipstream opportunities, especially with the then brake and passing opportunity down into the hairpin, but you also have that tight and twisty sector towards the end of the lap where you can get a little bit of side-by-side action going. I always enjoy racing here, or I rather enjoy watching the racing here, Joshua, and it seems like it's going to be no different with regards to the quality of the racing that we'll see today.
Really has the best of both worlds. A lot of long straightaways for drafts and slipstreams like you mentioned, but take a look at those technical corners in the arena sections of this course. We're going to see a lot of hard braking zones and a lot of passing opportunities through these middle portions of sector 2 and 3 that go inwards towards the infield of the track and curve back out onto the front straight.
And of course, the software, the simulator that we're using right now is, of course, iRacing. And, well, you can log on to iRacing.com to get today to see how maybe you would stack up against some of these drivers' lap times here at the Hockenheimring. And remember, there is 40% off all new memberships on iRacing as well. So there isn't really much of a better time to get yourself signed up and jumped into what is an absolutely fantastic simulator and a fantastic esport as well, Joshua. You know, sim racing seems to be going from strength to strength. Porsche is helping a whole bunch with regards to that with their support, and it's crazy we get to do this for another season, I suppose.
And the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup is the top level of the road license when it comes to the iRacing service. So when you make it into the Supercup, you know that you are the best of the best, and you're going to go battling to truly be the top gladiator when it comes to this series in 2022. But all the drivers in this series, 34 of them signed up here at the virtual Hockenheimring, they're all going to be going for just 15 spots when it comes to qualifying next year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the name of the game coming into this one. Of course, we've reduced the grid size slightly for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup proper, down from 40 to 35. It makes it a bit more of an exclusive club there, Joshua. You just need to have that edge a little bit more to get yourself qualified into that series. And, well, it does mean that will be some drivers here today that get upset. You know, they end up not qualifying, whereas previously coming into this event, you would have thought, okay, they would have, you know, they're pretty much a guarantee. We've seen that happen before in previous qualifying series.
And that goes to what I was saying earlier with minimizing the mistakes, right? When you're in the middle of the season, if you make a mistake, drop out of that top 15, it is going to be very difficult to get yourself back into that top 15 because it's going to be filled with a lot of great and fast drivers. And not only do we have drivers that qualified in from the earlier qualifying series in this year that are in it trying to go for the first time, there's the drivers who faced relegation from the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup last season. They're trying to get back to the top step of the road ladder here on iRacing, so they're going to be especially hungry to get those spots, and it all starts here at Hockenheimring. A great start to the season could lead to some great things down the line.
Yeah, absolutely could. So yeah, you described the format very nicely there, Joshua. Of course, those that got relegated from the 2020 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, they got themselves an invite to compete in this series. Not all of them accepted that though, but more on that later. But you know, if you finished outside of the top 20 in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup last year, then you do have to go through this whole entire requalification process, along with those guys that had come up from the qualifier series, the third tier of competition here on Porsche, in Porsche iRacing, I suppose. But we're running on board with Pekka Tuominen right now here in the number 19 car as he heads his way on one of his first qualifying laps here in the braking zone. Down into the right-hander here at the very start of the lap. And, well, it's sometimes pretty difficult to log a lap, or at least a fast lap here at Hockenheim. You have, of course, relatively technical sector coming in later on in the lap where you can just lose tenths, hundredths of a second quite easily.
And it's coming down into this hard braking zone of the hairpin as we take a look at this Vodafone onboard. There is the harsh right-hander. Get down on that loud pedal as quickly as you can. Get those tires spinning down this straightaway. Another one of the slipstream opportunities. A pretty fast right-hander here. Not a lot of touching of the brakes, and then he gets slowed down for this arena set section right here as he goes through the corner and trying to get that power down once again down this long straightaway. Very important to keep the momentum going as he goes a little bit off track up on those orange turtle curbs. Keeps it going though. If he didn't get a 1X, this lap will still count, but if he did, this lap will be disallowed. We'll have to see what it is when he comes across the line.
Into the arena section, then into the banked turn here. Just feed that to the bottom of the track, fastest way around, get yourself launched out of the corner, now into the S's section before those final two corners. Looking like a pretty neat and tidy lap so far here for Pekka, who, at least in my opinion, has one of the more magnificent beards in sim racing, as he'll shortly come across the line to finish his lap here as a 1:37.4, which does go provisionally fastest, as we are still waiting for those initial times to come in for the vast majority of the drivers here today. That's number 31 car there, David Williams, of course, competing last year in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, but unfortunately wasn't able to get an automatic qualification spot, which is why he's here today as well. And remember, David Williams also competes in the Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland as well. So lots of focuses for the VRS Contender Sim Sports driver.
We'll get a good look now at the number 40 machine working his way around the track. That is Julian Soinen, and second place currently on the timing sheet as we go just about halfway done here in qualifying. Connery, drivers still looking for some faster lap times, and those could come in handy. 1:37.215 for the 40 machine right now. He goes into the hairpin on another flying lap, and we'll see if he can improve on that time, get himself just a little bit further up when it comes to that timing sheet, qualify a little bit closer to the front, and that could come in handy when it comes into these heats tonight.
Yeah, so we're having a look at the the Vodafone onboards here, one of the VRS Contender Sim Sports drivers here, David Williams, continuing on here on his particular lap. Of course, Contender do have their own little house there in Germany, so their sim racing program has gone from strength to strength, and of course, one of their teammates, Josh Rogers, winning the last season of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. So hopefully they'll be looking for some good results here today, not only in this race, but of course the entire season, trying to get Williams back into that top tier series. And of course, they have Ayan Shanguben and Bobby Zelensky involved as part of that team as well. So there we go. You can see the times on the left-hand side of your screen. Currently, it is Matti Sippela. That's currently provisional pole position here. David Williams just trying to get himself prepared for his flying lap here. Julian Sonen in P2 with Peter Berryman lining up in third at the moment. But we've still got about 6 minutes in the qualifying left remaining. But remember, these drivers are limited to 3 flying laps, however.
Yeah, that limitation is going to come into play because really they're going to do 1 flying lap, then they're going to shut that car off, tow it back into the pit lane, then go out for another warm-up lap, then do their 3rd and final lap. So it's more like 2 laps. Nobody's going to run 3 laps back to back to back, but they are going to do 1 lap, do a pit-in lap, and then go right back out for that 3rd lap and lay down a fast one. As we take a look at Peter Berryman's Vodafone onboard, everybody knows the name Peter Berryman when it comes to high-level road racing on the iRacing iRacing service and, of course, competes in the Force Dynamics Dallara iRacing Grand Prix Championship that we just saw a couple of days ago. Now trying to get into the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. Let's see how fast this time will be. Trying to improve on a P3 right now because he goes through the hairpin, gets that power down. Is he going to have any wheel spin? Looks like almost none as he powers down the straightaway.
Yeah, very, very tidy corner exit there for Peter Berryman as he flicks that car in towards turn 7 and now on the brakes into turn 8, feeding that through to the apex very, very nicely. Don't want to take as much track exit as available there because that would compromise your line through the little S's section. Car on edge a little bit though, coming up towards turn number 11 though, but he's able to control it well up over the curb for the middle part of the corner, and oh, that's maybe a little bit too much exit there for Peter Berryman out of turn 11. Maybe that's going to lose him a hundredths of a second or so, but for Peter Berryman, P4 on the starting grid for the sprint race at the moment. Well, the option of getting higher is there, but this latter part of the lap is scrappy, and he knows it, and oh, just the sigh of frustration there from Berryman.
And remember, if he did go too far off track, he might have gotten a 1X. It was already done there, and he abandons the lap coming through the final corner. Obviously, Peter Berryman not happy about that. He falls to P5 as we take a look at the Fox Gaming machine of Roger Christensen. And look at that. He has that wheel so far away from him, and it really just goes to show here in the iRacing service, Connery, how different a lot of these setups can be. It's whatever these drivers are comfortable with when it comes to racing inside those sim cockpits.
Yeah, of course, Christensen, one of the absolute newcomers to Porsche racing, at least at the top level here on iRacing, has not got himself into the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup before, and the same could be said for a lot of drivers out there here today. He's Thibaut Casabon with the Vodafone on board there for just a brief moment in the R8G Esports car, so the esports team that's owned by and managed by Romain Grosjean, the F1 driver. So it's great to see them competing here in this series, trying to get themselves to the top level here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup. There are no strangers to other racing on iRacing either, especially with regards to the team special events that we have on iRacing, where we broadcast the top split on occasion. But their representation in the very top competition somewhat lacking compared to the caliber of their drivers. So Thibaut Casabon looking to get himself into that series once again.
Let's see how this lap is going to go for the number 24. Trying to improve on a P20. Not the worst it could have possibly been, but you can see he is fighting that Porsche there. Doesn't seem like it's handling exactly how he wants it to, but he brings it out of the final corner. How is this lap going to go? A little bit of a trip through the sand and then the grass as well. Is that going to disallow his lap time?
Yep.
He's not even going to cross the start-finish line there. It looks like he is over and done. It will be P20 for the number 24 machine here in qualifying.
Time is starting to run out for these drivers as well, and well, we're watching Alessandro Bico at the moment. He's on lap number 4, so this lap won't count since he's already gone over all of his allotted lap times, all his allotted fast laps for the session. And I can say that for the vast majority of drivers, that is the case. You have Grabowski out there who might be on the lap at the moment as well, but it looks like the what you see on the left-hand side there looks like it might be the order for the sprint race here today. And well, if you're wondering about the format of today, well, it's basically the same as the Porsche Heuer Esports Super Cup. We'll have a sprint race, then we'll have, of course, our main race where the top 8 cars from the sprint race results will be inverted. Everyone else lines up in position behind them. But with the Vodafone on board with Alessandro Bico, he's going to abort the lap as well. So drivers not feeling optimistic towards the end of this session to be able to improve on their position. And well, we're just kind of winding things down now for the next minute and a half as we watch Pierre Berryman.
And there is Berryman trying to still improve on that P5 on the racetrack. Can he do it is the big question. 5th place, definitely not a bad place to start, and especially if he finishes around that P5 spot in the heat race, he will end up starting closer to the front with that top 8 invert in the feature. Over the rumble strip, cross the line. What is Berryman going to do? Is it an improvement? Doesn't look like that lap is even going to be allowed. He's going to stay P5 in that number 50 machine for Apex Racing Team.
Yep, so of course no improvement there from Berryman, and I don't think I have been wrong before, but I don't think there's going to be improvement from really anyone out there here today. It seems like the track is past its best. The cars are past their best as we watch Carlos Fenolosa in the number 28 machine, Altus Esports, heading his way across the line to complete his third fast lap here. But again, that one was not valid here in this one. Elvis Rankin still out there, though, in number 91 machine. He's passed all of his qualifying laps as well, but he is one of the youngest drivers out there. We've got some very, very, very young and fresh faces in this series, and we'll talk more about that later on. But it looks like our qualifying grid is set here, Joshua, just waiting for the timer to run down.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting start here with the sprint race, because it's the first time we're going to see all of these drivers on the track this season. I'm interested to see how aggressive are these guys willing to go so early on, because it is just the sprint race before the feature in the first round of the Contender series. Are we going to see aggression, or are we going to see everybody sort of relax and try and just make it into the feature with a good starting spot? We're about to find out, Connery.
We absolutely will. So the first qualifying session of the season is over and done with, and we have our grid set for the first sprint race of the Porsche Esports Tag Heuer, Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Let's have a look then, because it's Matti Sippola that's currently on pole position there in the number 17 car. Gianni Vecchio from Team Redline lines up on the outside of that front row as well. Julian Sonnen in third place with Cooper Webster starting in fourth. Peter Berryman starts fifth with Caruso in sixth. Lombardi seventh with Kimichev in eighth. Biskrud in P9 and Suominen in P10. Brian Lockwood starts in 11th with Zelensky in 12th. Sarica 13th. Nessov 14th. Pico 15th. And Keatit 16th. As we see our David Williams there on the inside of row number 9. He would be looking for a little bit more than that qualifying effort here. Maybe his race pace is a little bit better as we cycle through the rest of the runners here today. You see Josh Thompson, one of the competitors from last season in the main series, qualifying down through the order in P24. So he has a lot of work to do here today as well. At the very back of the grid, you have a couple of names, Canario, Ricardo Rico, Elvis Rankin, and Laurent Benso. That is going to be the starting grid here for race number 1. So we're just a couple of moments away from getting ourselves started here. And, well, it's going to be 9 laps of racing here for the initial part of the event. And then we'll have ourselves the longer main race. But there is all the drivers, all getting themselves ready, taking themselves to the starting grid. And, well, the excitement is very much palpable here in the commentary booth. The anxiety is at an all-time high. The drivers to start off this season. I certainly can't wait to get going. There they all are then, all lined up on the starting grid. Of course, standing start as ever in this series. Same in the Super Cup. We're about to go racing here for the first time in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. It's going to be a long hold here before we get ourselves our start and that mad rush down in towards turn number 1. Those engine notes rise and we're racing here at Hockenheim. Green flag is out. The new season has begun. Good start for Matti Sippola. He leads through turn number 1 there. Gianni Vecchio tucked in behind with Cooper Webster up into third place. No dramas that I can see at the very front of the field, heading their way through turn 1 for the first time. But the turn 2 braking zone, the first major braking zone of the lap here, as there's multiple instances of side-by-side back through the field. Everyone at the front is very clean. The closest battle right now is Sonnen and Berryman going wheel to wheel off of the corner, off of the first complex, and down this back straight into the hairpin for the first time. Who's going to be daring to go for a move on the brakes down the inside here? You can go for the absolute send. There's already a challenge for the race lead, in fact, as Gianni Vecchio sticking it down the inside of Sippola. Sippola will get the traction off the corner as there's drama behind.
Vecchio wasn't clear in that battle for the lead as everybody bounces off of each other further back. Still battling up front, still top 2, wheel to wheel, side by side as they work their way through turn 8. Still wheel to wheel goes these two. Vecchio in that 70 on the inside line right now. It's Sippola on the outside in the 17. They're still side by side. The 37 of Cooper Webster watching from the background. How can he add himself into this fight? What's Berryman gonna do as the 17 almost gets run off track by Sippola? Back into the hard braking zone. Advantage to Sippola on the inside. Can he complete it? A little bit of contact in between the 37 and the 70.
He's got it. Sippola is back ahead, back to where he qualified. It was a big challenge there from Gianni Vecchio on lap number 1, but has to cut his losses for the moment. He has Cooper Webster basically right behind him. We're riding on board with the Vodafone onboard with the number 37 of Cooper Webster early on in this event, as he's not going to let these leading cars get away by any means. Got a podium spot right now, could be the race win for really anyone in this leading portion of the train at the moment. It seems like the draft block is that extreme here at Hockenheim, especially when you've got that huge slipstream zone on the way down into the hairpin of turn 6. But for the second time out of the first sector they come, and is it going to be a second time in a row for Gianni Vecchio to stick it down the inside at the hairpin? I wouldn't put it past him. Zippler's going slightly defensive to the middle of the road, but Vecchio again sends it down the inside at the hairpin. And well, has he completed the move this time around? There's a little bit of contact coming off the corner, but Vecchio slipped ahead, and Zippler now has to sit in P2 and wonder how he's going to get back past as there's drama in the background.
Multiple cars around closer to the back. Nicholas Labiche, it looks like he was taken out in that number 92, and a couple other drivers. And look at the 77 machine. That's Alessandro Bico with damage as well. He's going to tow it back into the pit lane as the battle continues at the front. This is something very interesting, Connery. Here's the Vodafone replay on the bottom of your screen. This is the first time going into turn number 1. There's the spin around and multiple contact for a handful of drivers on the outside of the line.
Yeah, for Bico involved in that. Got one of the Racecraft Esports cars involved deeper in that one as well. It was all a bit of a mess there in that corner from basically the mid-pack and back. He was trying to play a slalom through all of the cars there that were spun around in the middle of the circuit. It has shuffled up the mid-pack quite a bit here in this one. But as it stands right now, here on lap number 3, Vecchio leads in that number 70 Porsche from Zippler from Webster, but the fastest lap has been set by David Williams a little bit further down the order. He's in P11 at the moment, basically right on the back of this leading train. I say that, he's got a slight gap, but still getting a decent amount of the slipstream from back there. I have to wonder how far up this particular train he's able to work his way through. Going to be so important to get off to a good start here in the Porsche Esports, Heuer Esports Contender Series. Jordan Caruso down the inside of zone and through the hairpin, and we look at the battle for 15th behind.
That's Jack Sedgwick in this fight. Kane Halliburton there as well. Joshua Anderson, Carlos Fenalosa in this train as well. And it becomes very difficult, Connery, to make these passes when everybody gets in these long slipstream lines, but they need to make sure they keep up with that car in front. If you let that car in front get a lot more in front of you than you are willing to, you are going to lose that slipstream. As we take a look at a Vodafone replay of the 77, what happened to Alessandro Bico here? Oh, contact with 2 Porsches in front of him, and then contact with the 14 machine as well. Sends the 77 around, and take a look at that wheel damage, and he was grabbing it back into the pit lane, Connery, and that is so unfortunate for Bico. He is in the pits now, 29th place on the racetrack. As more incidents up front, it's Ricardo Rico and Carlos Fenalosa going around.
Bit of a tangle towards the latter portion of the lap. It's all a bit scrappy in the mid-pack and back. It's probably fair to say Rico is going to immediately bring that car down on towards the pit lane, and it wasn't the initial contact with Rico. In fact, it was Fenalosa diving down the inside of Joshua Anderson that caused that entire incident coming out of Sachs Curve, turn number 12. So it's been yet more dramas out there on circuit as well, because I'm seeing Pekka Toivonen also get himself involved in a little bit of something there on the left-hand side on the timing screen. So, well, it just shows how desperate the drivers are for points here early on.
And look at how close the top 5 are currently running. In the words of Mike Joy, put a blanket over at 1.5 seconds separating this entire top 5 right now. And goes back to what I was saying, Connery, they don't want to let that car in front of them get too far away, because then you can kiss them goodbye. They're going to be gone and out of your reach. This is perfect for these drivers at the front. If they want to make a pass, they can get aggressive and go for it, but they're not forced to. They can still run in that line like we're seeing a lot of drivers do now, buying time. Possibly if they're in this top 8 invert, they don't really want to go too much, so they don't start a little bit further back in the inverse. And take a look at this train as more cars start to join this top group.
Yeah, that's just how the draft works at Hockenheim sometimes, especially in these cars, as yet more drivers join the fray, trying to third party on the leading situation. We'll get ourselves a bit of a Vodafone replay of what happened to the number 19, which is Pekka Toivonen, which I mentioned it. I saw him dropping down the timing screen just a little bit earlier on. Contact from behind. Ooh, that's the 33 of Alexei Nesov that has, well, completely dumped Toivonen there, I'll be completely honest. And the rejoin. Oh, come on, guys. That is not how to rejoin.
And that made contact with the 93 as well. They went around, and that turned into a 2-car incident, into a 3-car incident very quickly right there. But the battle continues up front. Look at this, 2 Logitech Gialtis Esports cars up at the front, but out in front, it's Gianni Vecchio right now commanding this field. And he got past Sipola in that fight for the lead on P2, has not looked back since, but Sipola still has him reeled in. He can still go for the move for the lead. Doesn't look like he wants to do it just yet. And is he willing to do it here in the sprint race? Remember, with that inverse, these guys will be starting 8th and 7th respectively for Vecchio and Sipola. Do they want to gain spots up here in this front group? Then they're just going to be starting further down the feature order.
Yeah, something we haven't quite talked about. We did mention it a little bit before we started the sprint race here, but battle for P8 is all important here, especially given that with the reverse grid, it will give you pole position to start the main feature event. Be a huge advantage. Well, at some tracks, maybe not so much at this one, where where everyone can just kind of tag in behind you and you're not really able to break away from anyone. Of course, that is fully dependent on how the immediate start of the race goes. But if it's anything like this, well, you're not going to be able to get away, even if you do get the first good pole.
His lead pack coming back to the front straight away, and Sipola still sitting in P2, and you can see how far they go off of that corner on the final corner coming to the front straight away, turn 16. They're really trying to maximize their track limits here as we take a look at the cams for the battle for the lead. Vecchio and Sipola first and second. You can see just how focused they are right now, and something interesting to note with these pro level drivers, look at how calm they are. I feel like if I was in the front group in the battle for the lead in a Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series battle, I would be sweating, my palms would be all over the place, I'd be shaking, but these guys look calm as can be at the front of the field right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, battle for the race lead then. Well, not much of a battle at the moment. More like single file running at the very front of the field here. Drivers in the, well, back of this train just trying to think about, okay, where's going to be the best place to make my move here on the last couple of laps? Because, well, if you start fighting now, at least in the middle of this train, maybe you'll then end up losing the leaders if you have a bit of an extended side-by-side battle. So everyone, well, that's the reason why everyone's just kind of tucked in at the moment, just waiting for someone else to really make the first move. But it won't be too long before we start seeing moves in this leading train, I get the feeling. We've got 4 to go here at the moment, coming up to 3 to go with the Vodafone onboard with Cooper Webster from the land down under, and, well, almost into the gravel there if he wasn't able to recover that one. Braking on the curb can be a bit sketchy like that, and these cars, these old Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars, at least compared to the newer 992 variants we have now in iRacing, it's pretty sketchy on the brakes at the best of times.
These things are very tough to drive, which makes it even more of a challenge for these drivers to get around the Hockenheimring as we get a good look at Peter Berryman here for Apex Racing Team, trying to keep up with this lead battle, doing a good job of it for the moment. But Jordan Caruso in the number 22 for Logitech Gialtis Esports right behind him. He's in a Gialtis Esports sandwich right now as he is behind Webster in front of Caruso, sitting in P4. And with the invert, he'll be starting P5 if he holds this spot with 3 to go. They got to start thinking about where they want to start for this feature race. I don't think we're going to see much of the drivers really in the top 8 try and go for those spots, but David Williams, who sits in 9th, wants to reach that 8th spot to get into that invert as we see a Vodafone replay here. The number 12 machine with an issue. Everybody getting stacked up in the arena, and contact made, and I believe that was 2 teammates in the 12 and the 14 getting hooked up there.
Yeah, that was Ken Halliburton with Sam Keita with the car behind in the 14. There's never what you want to see. I wasn't totally sure from that angle if it was contact between the two of them. If it was, well, I'd like to be a fly in the wall in the communication channels of the Racecraft Esports team. Let me just say that. Could be some good entertainment and some words flying back and forth between the two of them. But I'm sure they're all amicable and okay. It's just sometimes those things can break down teams if they become a big problem. But 3 to go, coming up to 2 to go, so not a lot of time left here in this sprint race. Not a lot of time for Gianni Vecchio to try and defend from the whole bunch of angry Brahanas behind him. Got a little bit of a gap that time coming out of the final corner across the start-finish line, but I doubt he'll be able to get enough of a gap to be clear as far as Slipstream is concerned. So he's always going to have that threat of Sippler, Webster, and Berryman behind him. Meanwhile, back through the field, battle for 16th up on your screen. This is Elvis Rankin versus Brian Lockwood. And, well, Elvis Rankin, he's up into P16 now. He started pretty much at the very back of the grid in P33. So that's a good day so far.
Great run for Rankin right now, and a great run for Brian Lockwood as well. Force Dynamics Dallara Grand Prix World Championship competitor. Also was a competitor in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series as well. So a great run all over for the 43 of Brian Lockwood. His battle for 16th continues with Rankin leading in. And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make a move to the inside as we go on board with Vecchio. Webster now into P2. He gets the pass made on Sipola. Can Webster go all the way? Get that spot for the lead.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, because we are on board with Gianni Vecchio at the moment. Looking back at that leading train, of course, there's a little bit of confusion in that entire sequence, because we saw also the pass for P2 being made as well. So Cooper Webster up into second place. That's the Logitech G Aldous Esports car that you see in the rear view of Gianni Vecchio's Porsche 24 driven by Redline car. So good representation of teams in the top grouping, I should say. We would like to see more of that, please. But out of the final corner, on towards the final lap then. Vecchio has got a decent amount of breathing room here. Back to Cooper Webster. It's not like Webster's riding his back bumper through any of these corners, so Vecchio does have a bit of space to work with here. Or is that all planned by Cooper Webster to be able to get a better slipstream, a better slingshot down in towards the heavy braking zone of the hairpin here? We've got multiple views at this on the triple box here, as we'll see what happens at the end of this sprint race. Vecchio has run a very, very, very good race so far, getting to the front early on. Start P2 in P1, looks to try and win the race. There's going to be fighting behind as well between Berryman and Sippler. As Sippler commits on the brakes into the hairpin. He's overcommitted to it though, as he pushes Cooper Webster wide, and it's a free spot for Peter Berryman in the Apex Racing Team Porsche up into P2, and this might have sealed the race for Vecchio as well.
That moves Sipola and Webster down to 4th and 5th. They're still inside that invert number, but Vecchio now out in front. It's 7/10 the gap. Can Berryman make that up in just a straightaway and a handful of corners? Let's see what the Apex Racing Team number 50 can do. They're still battling further back. Webster's going to be able to get by Sipola for P4, so Webster takes that spot, making Logitech G Aldous Esports 3rd and 4th, but through the final couple of corners, Connery, Gianni Vecchio still trying to pull away, and he is going to in the final 2 corners. Clean and green at the front of the field. Vecchio's looking for a sprint race win.
Vecchio through the final corner then. Everything happened behind him, especially with the dive for P2 that made him get clear at the very front of the field. Gianni Vecchio wins the sprint race here at Hockenheim for round number 1 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. He looks pretty chuffed with himself. He'll flash the lights for a job well done. He will start in P8 though in the main race, but we know Vecchio is a pretty great passer, pretty good at his racecraft as well, so we'll see him working his way through the field. The order behind was Berryman, Caruso, Webster and Sippler in that order, so let's have a look at how it happened though, Josh.
And they were coming into the hairpin. We knew this was going to be one of the high energy, high action portions of the racetrack. And just look at that. He went for the dive. There's the lockup. And I think that's what just sold him in there. Unfortunately, Cooper Webster, nothing he did wrong there. Just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Here comes the 17 of Matty Sipola right up into his line. And Webster was able to get on by and work his way into that spot for P4. Sipola falls to P5 as we take a look at the results here from the sprint race, Connery.
Yeah, Sippler basically boxed into a corner there. He was trying to defend from the car behind, also trying to go on the offense, but in the end, it all ended in tears. Gianni Vecchio wins the sprint race here at Hockenheim. Peter Berryman, second place after everything kind of collapsed in front of him. Fantastic stuff for the Apex Racing team driver. Jordan Caruso getting himself on the podium for Altus Esports as well. P3 for him. Cooper Webster, well, he is able to come across the line P4, but it could have been so much more. Sipler P5, Sonen in P6, Lombardi P7, Sarica in 8th, Williams in 9th, and Tomanen in P10 here today. Down to the top 20, Sedgwick, Walters, Violate, Grabowski, Canario, Lockwood, Anderson, Benso, Rankin, and Christiansen, all within about 25 seconds of the race leader. That is how close this series often is, or at least how close Porsche Racing often is on iRacing. And then you have those drivers at the very back of the order. Bobby Zelensky, the last car on the leading lap. And then, of course, everyone else running into various sorts of problems here today in the sprint race. But due to the nature of the racing, they do get themselves a second chance of once the main race is coming up here, Josh. And if it's anything like that, I'm very happy.
And this is going to be exciting to see what the drivers in that inverse can do. We didn't see too much change at the front of the field when it came to drivers moving themselves up in the top 10. We saw drivers move themselves close, like David Williams in P9 from his issues in qualifying. He climbed his way up the field, but in that top 10 stayed relatively the same. So it'll be interesting to see how the fast drivers like the 70 of Gianni Vecchio, who will be starting in P8, can climb themselves up through the field, and if they can, and rally for a win in this feature race.
Well, of course, we are preparing ourselves for a couple of highlights here of the sprint race at Hockenheim, and what an action-packed event it was from the get-go. There's the start, pretty clean for the front runners in towards turn number 1, turn number 2. First big passing opportunity here, but there was the pass, or at least the attempted pass for the race lead from Gianni Vecchio. A couple of drivers getting themselves all out of shape, coming into the hairpin for the first couple of times. There's the absolute send from one of the Urano Esports drivers, and then the contact sending one of the Williams Esports drivers wide. I think that was Pico in the number 77 car. But the mid-pack seemed to have a couple of problems, shall we say, in this sprint race. Maybe some teething issues getting used to the racing here, and hopefully not a sign of things to come, especially with that very dodgy rejoin from the 33 of Alexei Nesov.
And I think a lot of the contact could also come down to maybe the other drivers not knowing exactly where the braking zones are. Remember, Hockenheim still relatively new to iRacing, came in just a couple of seasons ago, so it is not exactly as new as Hungary per se, but it is still fairly new. Drivers could still be learning it. As we get another look at that incident, the 14 and the 12, I believe they did make contact there, Connery, which, like I said earlier, would not want to be a fly on the wall when it comes to that communication. There was that incident on the white flag lap, the 17, blowing that hairpin and going right into Cooper Webster. And there was that celebration from Vecchio, a great win, the first sprint race win for him of the season, and he gets to say he won the first race of the season when it comes to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series.
Let's just have a little bit of a refresh of where we're racing here. Of course, you know, Hockenheim has already delivered a fantastic sprint race, and we're preparing ourselves for the feature event in just a couple of minutes' time. But you know, of course, you know, it does play host to racing like that time and time again here. Does this track, and it's going to be no different heading into the feature race. In fact, it might be a little bit more chaotic due to the fact that we do have that reverse grid. So reverse grid pole position here will go to Moreno Sarica, and it's Dino Lombardi on the front row as well. So for the front of the field, it's nerve-wracking stuff, because a lot of drivers don't really expect to get themselves the reverse grid front row, but sometimes it does happen, and you really have to capitalize on it. You can't bottle it down in towards turn number 1. But you won't be bottling it if you sign up to iRacing here, as you go to iRacing.com and get yourself signed up with the 40% off new memberships that we have here. Call me Linus Tech Tips, because that segue was both awesome and awful.
That was a perfect segue there, Connery. And as you were mentioning with the inverse, we've seen in the past, it could be a blessing or a curse. If you're on that front row, maybe you don't have the speed to stay up front. You're going to be falling like a rock with cars going by you each way and every way. So it'll be interesting to see if the top 2, I'd even go as far as to say the top 3, maybe top 4, if they can keep up at the front of the field, because it is such a challenge to stay at the front of the field in these cars, because everybody stays so close together. If you are just a 10th off pace, you will be passed, and you will be passed quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. The qualifying times were incredibly close here today, especially in and around the thick of things, in and around P10 down to P20, where the vast majority of the fighting and some of the bits of contact that we saw in the sprint race. But we are now heading into the feature race. The server has already gotten ourselves set here for our second race here today. And there's the confirmation of the reverse grid, though. Moreno Tsarika will get himself onto the pole position here for the feature event. 18 laps here, by the way, so double the length of the sprint race. We have Dino Lombardi on the front row as well. Julian Sonen in P3 with Matti Sipler in P4. Cooper Webster starts P5 with Caruso in P6. Peter Berryman starts 7th with Gianni Vecchio, our sprint race winner, starting in P8. Of course, he'll come out the worst of the reverse grid there. David Williams narrowly missed out on a reverse grid pole position. He's starting in P9 with Pekka Toivonen in P10. That's where he started in the sprint race as well. So it's not going to be a foreign concept for the number 19. Jack Sedgwick starting in 11th with Volters 12th. Fialati 13th, Grabowski 14th. Canario in 15th with Lockwood in 16th. Joshua Anderson in 17th with Laurent Benso in P18. Elvis Rankin starts 19th. That's way better than the back of the grid like the sprint race. Christiansen is P20 here to start. And then, of course, we can run through, bottom of the field starters here for the moment. Because if you had a bad result and you fell towards the back of the field in that sprint race, well, you're going to be starting at the very back of the field here in the main event as well. So Zelensky on the inside of row 13 with Guven, with Gardner, and Nessor further back with Fenalosa and Kazubon, who had a couple of problems in that first race. Josh Thompson back through the field, Biko, Laubich, and Timochev rounding out the starting grid, the 34-car starting grid here today for the main event. We're just a couple of moments away from getting our first feature event underway. 18 laps of the Hockenheimring with the reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race. You couldn't ask for anything more. Drivers getting themselves prepared now for that mad rush down, maybe not into turn 1, but down into towards turn 2, and the hairpin is where we saw the mad rush from last time around. Get ourselves all set then. Engines revving, and it was a very short hold, completely the opposite to what we saw in the sprint race. We're off and away already here for the feature race of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series at Hockenheimring as they file all the way through turn number 1. Multiple instances of side-by-side down through the field. Some drivers having to push wide onto the runoff to be able to successfully negotiate the corner. Peter Berryman in the thick of things at the very front of the field, trying to fight actively with sprint race winner Gianni Vecchio back through the field. There the cars going side by side in the very back of the shot there as they file their way through down in towards the hairpin. Fantastic shots here given to us by the iRacing production crew.
Matti Sippola spun at the back of the field. That is huge for the 17 here in the feature race, but the battle continues up front as Sirica tries to run away. Lombardi sits in P2, 3 wide as they go into the hairpin. One more car going to get spun around as they continue to fight multiple instances of 2, 3 wide here on this opening lap. And take a look at the diving pass from the 40 of Julian Sonen to keep that spot. Webster and Caruso sitting at the end of your top 5.
Yeah, Sipler, you mentioned it, didn't quite clock it on the initial start, but Sipler having major problems coming out of turn number 1. Did a very big slide in the background of one of the shots. I think it was the Cover Esports car, and got cycled all the way back through the field. Not an ideal start at all for Sipler. It's Sarica that's currently leading at the moment, though, with Dino Lombardi second place and Julian Sonen in third for the moment, as this leading tree still, well, very much established at this point. We did see some separation a little bit later on in the sprint race, but for now, the entire field all together, not having that one big incident that separates the entire pack as we watch the replay of the start, and Sipler's problems on the curb at the exit of turn 1, and yeah, all the way to the back of the field you go.
That is so unfortunate, Connor. It's just such a simple mistake. He got just inches too far on the rumble strip and spun him around and took him out of contention for the win here in the feature. Such a tough break for the driver who had such great success in the sprint race and now is all the way at the back of this field. Not even close to any other drivers at the moment. He'll have to work to try and get up to the front as we have an incident It's around goes Cooper Webster and Julian Sonin. Two of the drivers at the front of the field get turned around, exit the hairpin. Webster trying to rejoin. He can't. Almost makes contact, and I believe he just spun his teammate, the 28 of Fetalosa.
It could not go any worse there for Cooper Webster. The rejoin takes out makes contact with his teammate in the Altus Esports car. I think it was the Carlos Fenalosa that was coming up on that one. Had to try and take avoiding action, but it was to no avail. Here's the moment coming off the corner. Gotta give each other space on the exit there. I think Webster was expecting the car behind just to be a little bit wider than that. And now, that's a dodgy moment on the rejoin there. And Josh, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is a theme of me as a commentator calling out dodgy rejoins as much as possible. There was almost one big one there for Cooper Webster with the entire field coming through.
Luckily, it was only one driver who got caught out by Cooper Webster trying to rejoin. Unfortunately, it was his teammate at Logitech G Altus Esports. But look at this battle. Closer to the front, we have a two-car battle for the lead, two-car battle for P3. Fastest lap was set by Lombardi. Cipolla now sets that fastest lap as Cicerica and Lombardi continue to fight at the front, and Caruso is losing a bit of time to that top two battle. He needs to try and make some of that up because they can kiss those front two goodbye if they get too far behind. Right now, it's 1 second separating second and third place right now. If it stays like that, the drivers from third on back will have no chance of getting to the front of this feature, and loose coming into the braking zone goes Caruso, spins himself around in the hairpin.
Oh my word, if you're Altus Esports right now, then this is a main race to forget. I don't know whether Caruso got contact from behind there into the hairpin. We might have to take another look at it. It does look so with the sudden jolt of the car, but Caruso spun in the wrong direction. And, we'll get ourselves a replay here of the number 28 here with Carlos Fenalosa. This is the incident, 2 incidents ago. And, it was a completely separate one as well before that whole rejoin shenanigans happened.
Ooh. Yeah, and he was trying to avoid that, and you can see him just a little bit shooken up from that incident going through the hairpin and had no idea his teammate was there, trying to avoid it a little bit too late and made contact. And the 77 of Alessandro Bico also getting contact in the hairpin on the last lap, and he is now into the pit lane. We'll see if we can grab a Vodafone replay of that one, but we stay live for the moment with this battle at the front of the field as everybody now trying to get stuck in. We go double the distance than the sprint race. It was 9 laps in the sprint. We have 18 here in the main, so a lot more time for these battles to develop, a lot more time for drivers to make up time, and we're seeing that they have that in mind right now as we see a little bit of drivers get spread out, still not letting them get too far away, but they are not panicking just yet. Still a long way to go here in the main.
Absolutely. So watching that leading battle developing, but we're going to get ourselves a Vodafone replay here. I believe this is the incident that you were talking about, Josh, as it's involving number 22.
And started with the 22 here. He gets turned around. It looks like not even in contact with the Apex Racing Team car behind. He just got a little bit too loose going down in the braking zone. We mentioned that earlier. And there's the 4 making contact with the 77. Alessandro Bico in the 77 machine. It's Ricardo Rico in the 4. And I believe they also got into each other in that sprint race as well. So the 77 and the 4, not on the best of terms right now as Bico is in the pit lane. Ricardo Rico sits in 27th place at the moment as the battle for the lead stays just about the same for the moment, Connery.
It does, and we were hoping for a little bit of a less chaotic main race. It seems like it's just as chaotic as the sprint race. But hopefully things should be calming down a little bit just from this point forwards as we'll get ourselves a replay up on the bottom here. Of course, there's so many things that have happened over the course of this race while we've been on replays and such. So it's we're just getting caught up on things a little bit here. A little bit of contact at the hairpin there. Car spun around, more contact from cars trying to come through on them behind. That was number 91 that spun all the way around. That's Elvis Rankin, who had that charge through the fields in the sprint race, but unfortunately it ends up with egg on his face in the main.
Still battling up front as Lombardi keeps that distance at about 2/10, which is important. He wants to at least be within striking distance, and you can see it. He's getting close, goes for the pass left into the hairpin. Question is, can he get to that inside? Yes, he can. Now can he get the power down to keep that move made? Yes, he can. He closes the door on Sirica. A great move from Dino Lombardi. New leader, put the 23 up to the point as that forces Peter Berryman to close in. Gianni Vecchio is also closing in, but add David Williams into the top 5 here.
Yeah, so fantastic pass there for the race lead for Dino Lombardi up into P1. He started 7th in the sprint race, so benefiting, and well, he finished 7th in the main race, in the sprint race as well, so benefiting a whole bunch from the reverse grid. Now he's got himself up to the very pointy end of the field. But let's have a look at how, well, this whole situation came about here in this series. Let's have a look at the well, what's happening over the course of Porsche Esports over the course of these iRacing seasons. Of course, we have in this race the bottom 20 finishers of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup iRacing from last year, and we have the top 15 from the qualifying series of this year. Well, they're all fighting in this series to get into that top 15 to then book their ticket into the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup for 2022. That's the system. It's very, very simple, Josh.
Yeah, and it becomes very challenging to get into that top 15. It all starts with a good run here at Hockenheim. If you get behind the 8 ball, maybe down in 20th, 25th, it is going to be a long and grueling climb back up, and you're going to need to be borderline perfect if you make too many mistakes. And look at the defense from the 23 here of Dino Lombardi trying to hold that lead, and Sirica falling a bit behind. Here comes Peter Berryman to the inside. The Apex Racing team number 50 wants the spot on the Williams Esports machine. Here comes David Williams into the braking zone as well. A little bit of a lockup from Vecchio, but getting the power down early. Right on around goes Berryman. Now we're seeing a bit of issues for Moreno Sirica. Hopefully that car isn't having any issues, but he is falling like a rock right now, Connery. I'd be worried if I was him, as now he's about to get passed by Vecchio on the inside. The 69 for Williams Esports continuing to fall down the order. He goes to P4.
Yeah, so a couple of problems there. We can't find in the mid-pack as well in and around where Bobby Zelensky is, but still early doors here in this race. Just lap number 6 of 18 here in this one. Careful, Peter Berryman, as he was heading his way out of what was turn number 11 there, the Mobile 1 curve, dipping the 2 tires into the gravel. Of course, you do want to tease the limits as much as possible here, as far as the off tracks and the slowdown penalties. But you do have to. You're playing with fire somewhat.
Definitely, and they want to make sure they don't go off too far, because not only could they be reaching up towards that incident limit, but they could also have to give time back to the iRacing service. Here's a replay with the number 95 machine as they go into the hairpin. This is Camille Grabowski. Oh, hard contact with the 21 of Bruno Carnero from behind, and getting spun around is Camille Grabowski, a familiar name in the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship, and trying to qualify for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. Not the best start. He's down in P23.
I think the case for Canario there, it was a case of looking too much in the rear view and the wing mirrors and less looking ahead, because he was concerned about the side-by-side battle behind him, and if anyone was going to try and make a lunge on him, failed to look directly ahead of him and to see the closing rate on the car ahead. That's how I would explain that incident. Of course, it's still very much his fault in that one. You do have to keep the awareness up to scratch at all times, but you know, there is wider context to these things sometimes. But lap 7 of 18 here, relatively long way to go. It's definitely not at the halfway point just yet. That leading train still established. Lombardi trying to break away, trying to get a gap back to Peter Berryman. It's not going to be successful for the moment. And of course, we have that ever-present Gianni Vecchio up into 3rd at the moment. He started 8th due to the reverse grid, making some very good progress.
And can he keep that progress going? Up 5 spots from where he started. Like you mentioned, Connery in P8. You know who else is up 5 spots? Peter Berryman, who currently sits in 2nd place. They are nose to tail right now, racing down the front straightaway into the first corner. There you see 2nd and 3rd. Can Vecchio get up 1 more spot? A hard braking zone is coming up here in turn number 2. Is he going to take it? No, he will not. Vecchio stays in P3. Sirica and Williams rounding out this top 5, and Pekka Tuomainen is knocking on the door of that top 5 as well there in P6. Bit of a train going from first right on to about 5th. They're all within 2 seconds. You can add up to P7 there within 3 seconds of the race leader for the moment, and Dino Lombardi still setting the pace. Interesting to see how these drivers are racing here. Doesn't look like they're getting too aggressive. We have 11 laps to go. It'll be 10 to go across the line. Need to make sure they do not get into an incident. We have seen plenty of that here in the feature race. If you're up front, you want to be smart. Get those points on the board, especially since it is the opening round of the Contender Series. They want to get those early points up.
Here we go. Battles on for P number 2, just a little bit further down the road. There they are. As they exit out of the right-hander, Vecchio is feeling the need to try and get past at the moment because he's seeing the race leader of Dino Lombardi pull away from this train, trying to break the slipstream. And now the desperation starts to set in here for Vecchio. If he wants to get the double race win here today, he needs to try and get past Berryman and fast, because it seems like Lombardi is so quick in clear air.
Look at Vecchio diving into that corner, late braking, trying to get on the gas as quickly as he can. That is how you are fast here in these Porsches, but he's got to be smart. If you run these cars just a little bit over the limit, they will snap back at you. We've seen it plenty of times. These cars are not easy to drive. And as Vecchio going to step out, Berryman going to take the defensive line to the inside. Not going to be enough. Vecchio clears him before they even make it into the braking zone. Put Vecchio up to P2. Berryman's not done. How much can he stay behind this draft here and keep up in P2?
Yeah, I think that was a calculated move there from Peter Berryman. He knows maybe Vecchio is a little bit faster than you, to reference a thing. But for Vecchio, it's now his task is set ahead, trying to catch that race leader of Dino Lombardi. He's about 1.5 seconds behind for the moment. And of course, we'll take this opportunity halfway through the race to go iRacing full throttle here in just a couple of moments to let you hear the wonderful sounds of these Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. Of course, the 991 variants due to us going to the 992s for the proper season after all this is done. So, well, farewell 991, but hello 992. Well, hello everyone. We are indeed back from that iRacing full throttle. As well, we got ourselves the middle of the race still going. Well, getting towards the end now with 6 laps to go. Dino Lombardi still leads from Gianni Vecchio to Peter Berryman, to Moreno Sricha, and then David Williams. That's the top 5 as it stands. Not all that much to report, however, here, Josh. Of course, I'm Connery Maddock. I'm with Joshua Lee as commentators for this particular broadcast, and of course this season. That leading train still, well, kind of a little bit splintered at the very front. Vecchio's just kind of gone charging off on his own and his one-man task of trying to catch Dino Lombardi. He's left everyone in the dust, and it's probably going to end up being a scrap for P3, P4 and back.
Looks like closest battle right now, P4, Sirica and Williams. David Williams trying to hold on to that spot, and Pika Tuomainen also trying to catch up, as it looks like we have a spinner in the back. Julian Sonin around in the 40 machine. He falls to P21. We stay with the battle up here, middle of the way through the top 10. As Williams in that VRS Coin to Sim Sport machine trying to keep Pika Tuomainen at bay. And Tuomainen has been one of the drivers today that has really impressed me. A good qualifying effort, good effort in the sprint race as well. And started 10th here in the feature after his 10th place finish in the sprint. And really good day so far as he has worked his way up into P6. And we'll see if he can go any further than that up into the top 5 as he is trying to knock down that door of David Williams. Not close enough yet, but here comes the slipstream. Is it going to work for Tuomainen? Not going to make that aggressive move yet. Still 5 to go. No reason to be too aggressive just yet, Connery.
Yeah, absolutely. So current state of the race is, well, Lombardi has a pretty good gap back to Vecchio, so this is probably one of the main fights, or one of the more important fights that we'll get to see by the end of this event, involving, of course, like you said, David Williams and Pekka Toivonen here, but so David Williams just moved to the inside a little bit just to ward off any moves, I suppose, to Pekka Toivonen. Not that the moves were coming, though, because that would be way too far back coming into the hairpin. Hasn't stopped drivers from trying from that far back, though. It's just that the success rate of any moves there with the lunges is relatively low, I would say, unless you're able to line it up properly. But you've got a close little run, close little thing going on behind these guys as well, between Alexandra Volters and Kenton Violate for P7 and P8 as well. So that might be another thing to look at by the time this race is done. Gap stable at the front, though, so Vecchio is not really making any inroads into Lombardi's lead at the moment.
Definitely not, but he is keeping in P2. And take a look here at the battle with David Williams. We'll go to a Vodafone replay. Battle between the 37 and the 40 machine on this racetrack, and they're racing down into the hairpin. Julian Sonin, you're on board with Cooper Webster. Webster goes almost onto the grass for that move. The 40 of Sonin really keeping that door closed. Here's the crossover from Webster. Could he get the power down? No, he could not. But I believe they made contact coming up here in one of these future corners. That sends Sonin around. He's back in P21 right now. But what a battle we've got further back. And we still have a battle for P5 here with David Williams trying to hold Tuomainen, Walters, and Violati at bay.
Yeah, there wasn't any way Webster was getting to the inside there. Not if Sonin had anything to do with it. Maybe a bit too aggressive. That seems to be the consensus of everyone watching as well. But again, nose to tail through the hairpin. Toivonen really getting involved in things here, and well, it's, you know, currently still single file as they head their way through the right-hand kink, but I guess they won't be single file for very long. That's what I'm getting the feeling of here at the moment, as Toivonen continues on that task of trying to get himself inside of the top 5. Unsuccessful so far. Has to be concerned about Alexander Volters behind him, but Volters maybe not applying as much pressure as Toivonen is applying to the car ahead of him. So a bit of a lopsided affair, that one, as they head their way into the Sachs curve on the 4 to go mark here. And well, if there's going to be any fighting, well, it's going to be at the very in that leading pack, and also a little bit further back as well, as we're seeing a couple of drivers involved all the way back here as well, involving the 40, the 37, involving that developer's 21st. There we go, we get that correctly. So Sonin, Webster, and Grabowski in a bit of a 3-car trio towards the very mid pack.
And Grabowski just now joining this fight. Remember, we just saw that Vodafone replay a few moments ago with Sonnen and Webster. I don't think Webster is exactly too happy with being almost pushed into the grass when he was trying to make that move. So I think he's going to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to trying to get by this number 40 machine. Where's he going to go for the move is the big question. And is Kamil Grabowski going to throw his hat into the ring here and go for a move as well? But Sonnen at the front of this group right now, trying to hold both of them at bay. 2021 Nürburgring 24-hour winner for the Cup class. Knows what he's doing when it comes to these cars and knows what he's doing when it comes to long races like we have here in the feature. 18 laps. We've only got 3 of them to go. Webster's going to peek out to the outside as Sonnen tries to protect that inside. Will we see a crossover here, Connery? I think we will.
It's all about getting the traction down, and you don't have the traction control to help you in these cars. No assists like that. You don't have any ABS as well, which is why sometimes the braking can be sketchy as Webster continuing to apply the pressure, taking the big wide arc in through the left-hander at turn 8 is not going to get him a line through the S's, though. Maybe an opportunity coming through the exit of the corner. He's getting very, very close indeed. Almost has an overlap, but not enough of one to be able to commit down the inside at turn 11. Not the most ideal overtaking point on the track either. Sonnen making that car as wide as possible as Webster still stuck behind. There's the battle for 5th at the very top of your screen as well, as Toivonen still continuing to hound down that VRS Commander Sim Sports car of David Williams.
You said hounding down. I love that you used that because he is not exactly there, but he is there right in his mirror. He's not making that pass, but he's close enough to where Williams knows he's there, and Williams needs to try and be on the defense to keep Tuominen at bay. You look bottom of your screen. Battle for 22nd on the racetrack right now. That is between Sonnen in 21st, Cooper Webster 22nd, Kamil Grabowski 23rd. They're in a 3-car line trying to hold each other at bay, and as they race out of turn number 3, they'll go down the straightaway through the Parabolica into the hairpin. Speaking of the hairpin, battle for P7 as Vialati goes to the inside of Walters, able to complete that pass. The 81 up into P7.
There we go. So we are getting pretty late on in the race now. There's not a lot of time to go. And about the 22nd also getting very, very feisty indeed as the Altus Esports car shoves the other machine out of the way. And now it's a bit of a side-by-side battle involving Sonnen back in that particular battle with Grabowski. Grabowski trapped on the outside here. Sonnen able to swing his way through. But Webster really got his elbows out there, I suppose.
And Grabowski still trying to knock down that door of Julian Sonnen. Cooper Webster trying to take this opportunity to start to pull away exactly what that Logitech G Altus Esports number 37 is going to do. But the battle between Sonnen and Grabowski is not done. Grabowski falling a little bit behind, about 4/10, needs to try and keep up with that front group. But just like that, Connery, we're on the final lap of this race. Lombardi's pulling away. Still an intense battle for P7, still an intense battle for P22 on the racetrack.
I wouldn't say Lombardi's pulling away, and in fact, it's now dipped below a second. It was a horrible first sector there from Lombardi, so maybe it gets a little bit close, but maybe not close enough for Gianni Vecchio at the very end. He is going to be feeling the very, very tail end of the slipstream on the way down in towards the hairpin, and it's going to be a little bit too little too late as far as Vecchio is concerned, unless another mistake comes Lombardi's way. We'll just have to wait and see. Here's the battle behind, though, of one that we've been watching and anticipating. It's David Williams versus Toivonen. Toivonen all out of shape, all very, very wide. Gets the drive off the corner, though, denies the position from Kenton Vialate, who was looking to try and capitalize on the big mistake that Toivonen made. Toivonen keeps himself ahead for now, tries to cover off the line, coming in towards turn number 8. And, well, Vialate is not giving this one up without a fight whatsoever. The driver of number 81 looking to improve one more position as he started in 13th and now looking for 6th to the outside of turn number 11 for Kenton Vialate. Is he able to get the pass done? We'll just have to wait and see, because there's the race leader of Dino Lombardi, got away in the middle portion of this race and simply has not looked back. I believe there might have been a little bit of an instant behind, but Lombardi is not concerned about that. He gets himself a feature race win here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. A shout of joy, a flash to the light, and Lombardi is on top.
You can see the emotion, and even though it's a Contender Series win, it is still so important. Dino Lombardi with the win. The Italian is gonna be on top here in the feature. You mentioned an incident towards the back there, Connery. Pekka Tuomainen blew through the corner, through the arena. It was turn 12, went into the sand, hit the guardrail, down to P13 at the line. What a disastrous final lap for the 19.
We did have to put that aside for the very end there, but look at this from Lombardi. I don't think he can quite believe it himself. All sweaty, all emotional, and well, he can count himself as a race winner, a feature race winner in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Probably one of the best ways to get yourself, well, at least a decent chance of qualifying into the Heuer Esports Supercup for 2022. He's certainly enjoying life at the moment. A 7th place in the sprint race, but that all-important race win in the feature nets a whole bunch more points. Well, we're going to have to take a little bit of a breath after that one, but of course we do have the race results from the feature race here in just a couple of moments' time. We do have to go and have a look at something else, though, with the Vodafone replay, and I believe this is the incident that we saw on the timing screen towards the very end of the race with Pekka Tuomainen. Let's see what happens here. You described it, Josh, but now let's describe it with the video to help.
Yeah, and great look at this Vodafone replay. He went to the bottom to try and defend on the 81 of Violati. Here they come through turn 11, the Mobile 1 corner here at Hockenheim. Almost forces the 81 off, but right here just locks up the brakes and goes right into the sand. And once you're in that sand, it just pulls you off the racetrack. Didn't make contact with the tire barrier, but lost a ton of time going through the sand and the grass. He came back on to finish P13. Not the run Pekka Tuomainen was looking for here in the feature after such a great run battling inside the top 5.
Dare I say he did a Vettel. So there we go. I'll just get that out of the way. He does end up, of course, coming across the line, albeit further down the order, P13 for Pekka Tuomainen. But we will have to get ourselves our very special Bose post-race show started. And what an incredible event it was here, Joshua, in this particular event. We had Gianni Vecchio win the sprint race. We had Dino Lombardi win the feature event. And, of course, drivers will be standing by. And, well, Josh, you are standing by with Dino Lombardi.
And what a win for Dino Lombardi. Dino, just starting with, we saw the emotion when you came across the finish line. How much does it mean to get the first feature race win of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series for this season?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't expected this result for the first race, and I'm very happy. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
That invert put you into P2 starting position for the feature. When you got put up there, did you think that you had the speed to make the run for the win and get by some of the very fast drivers that were ahead of you? And you made that pass for the lead look easy in the early portion of that race, and then you pulled away from there.
Yeah, the guys are very fast. Gianni had more pace, and in the last laps, difficult with the tires. And but I do my best, and I win the race. I'm happy, very happy.
And we go to Barcelona in 1 week's time. Can you keep this pace going as we go through the rest of the season?
Yeah, Barcelona is a beautiful track. I like it, and I try to my best for the next round. And okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here post-race, Dino.
You.
Congratulations on this win.
Thank you.
And we move over to Gianni Vecchio, the sprint race winner, 2nd place in the feature. Gianni, let's go back to the sprint really quickly, and then we'll transition over to the feature. Win in the sprint, you showed pace, then you went into the feature. That inverse put you down into P8, but the fight up to 2nd place looked like you had a very fast Porsche out there in Hockenheim today.
Yeah, the car was great. Like obviously the preparation during the week was pretty good. Setup, because since we did like the quali series on this track already, the setup kind of was already done. Just need to do some tweaking. But yeah, I mean the quali wasn't that good for me honestly, because I was on a 36.9 and then I like kind of yoinked it a bit in the last turn, and that's why I really at the start of the sprint I really wanted to go for the lead early, because I knew behind me there could probably like could happen some shenanigans. That's why I just wanted to get in the lead, run away. Second race, yes, good start, kept it clean. I think I was P7 after turn 2, and then yeah, just I kept my head out of all the trouble that was around me, and then in the end I just passed Peter. He let me through, and I was trying to get Dino, but like I was a bit too aggressive on the tires, like basically in lap 7, 8, or 9, and that's why I really didn't have any tires anymore in the end. But I take P2. It's fine, nearly maximum points, so nothing really more I can get out of this race.
This gives you some good momentum and some good confidence going into the remainder of the season. Can you keep this 70 machine working in tip-top shape and walk away with maybe a couple more sprint race wins, maybe a few feature race wins through the remainder of the Contender series?
That's definitely the goal. I mean, I won the quali series, so I want to keep this momentum going into the Contender series and get as many wins as possible. That's the goal here.
Some great momentum starting for you, Gianni. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Bose post-race show in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series, the first round of the season. We now are with Peter Berryman for Apex Racing Team. Peter, we saw some good speed for you, just wasn't enough to get up to the top step. What was that number 50 missing out there today that prevented you from getting further up on the podium spots?
Nothing. I think the car was there definitely to win the last race. Just a bit unfortunate. I think Gianni was pretty impatient. Had a couple of hits in the rear from Gianni, which caused quite a couple big slides for me. And after the slides, the rear tire temps just went through the roof, and from there it was just like ice skates for me. So yeah, I took the decision. I felt if Gianni stayed behind, I probably wasn't going to finish the race. So I had to think big picture and just slot in behind and try and let the tires cool from there. Eventually got the tires cooled and could show a lot of good pace. I think of the top 3, I was the fastest guy there the last 4 or 5 laps. So I mean, overall double podium, super happy, but little bit disappointed not to get a chance to sort of fight for the win in the second race there.
How is the team feeling about Barcelona coming up in 1 week's time? It's been a mainstay of the Super Cup calendar for the past 2 seasons. Can you bring the same pace and maybe have a little bit more luck, get up into first place and grab your first sprint or feature race win of the season at Barcelona?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously the advantage, the likes of myself and the other guys that have come through the qualifiers to get to Contenders is that we've already been to the track. So we've already sort of broke the back of the hard work with the setup and things like that. So I think with a couple of tweaks, and we should be able to fight for the wins again, hopefully.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in the Bose post-race show, Peter. Congratulations on that 3rd place here in the opening round from Hockenheim.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Great to hear from the top 3 drivers, Connery, and this wraps up the first round of the season. It was a barn burner in both the sprint and the feature. A lot of battles, a lot of carnage, and I think this is going to keep up through the remainder of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, like I said so many times, it's been an incredible event, and what a start to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series season it has been. And we get back-to-back weeks of racing here in this series. That's the best thing. But I certainly can't wait for what's to come here in this series, because there's so many very, very competent drivers, especially at the very pointy end of the field. There's the results from the main race, by the way. So Dino Lombardi first with Vecchio in second with Berryman in 3rd. That's your podiums, 3rd and 4th, and Williams in 5th as the top 5 finishers. They're getting themselves a pretty good points haul heading into next week here, Joshua. It's so important to get yourself off to that absolutely crazy start here in this season, because you need to carry that momentum through, because it's a very short season here, Josh, and there's not a lot of room for error. And of course, the next event that we'll be heading to, the next circuit, will be Barcelona, Catalonia next week.
And Barcelona, another one of these FIA Grade 1 circuits, another one of a staple of the Formula 1 calendar, and going to bring a little bit more of the challenges, the same challenges we saw at Hockenheim. There's a bit of long straightaways there for slipstreams, but also some great technical corners where we're really going to see those passes be made.
So here we go then. It is, well, same time, same place next week, everyone, for round number 2 of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series for 2022. We're on same time, same place every single week for 6 rounds of competition. Round number 2 at Circuit the Barcelona Catalunya is coming up next week. We certainly will be here for it. We hope you're there for it as the Contender Series gets off to its start. Bye-bye.